Hey, and welcome to today's webinar on emotion coaching. I'm Ricardo, an occupational therapist from Little Heroes OT, and today we're going to be going through this 5-step framework of how to help children build resilience and emotional intelligence. First, let's start with the importance of emotional coaching and implementing this throughout a child's daily routine. If you're here, you're likely a parent, educator, or therapist who's struggling to support a child with big emotions. And today, we're going to be going through how to support you through this. Perhaps you're seeing daily meltdowns, withdrawals, or defiance, and you're not quite sure how to support these children to regulate their emotions. Perhaps you feel stuck, unsure of what to say or do in the moment, or worried that your reaction may be making things worse. For children, especially those with a disability, emotional regulation is the foundation of everything that they do in life. This skill is essential for them to be able to play, learn, and thrive in their everyday interactions. Without the skills to manage their emotions, children are at risk of feeling misunderstood, overwhelmed, or isolated. But here's the good news. Emotion coaching works, and it gives children the tools to understand, recognize, and manage their feelings, as well as strengthening the relationships that they have with the adults around them. For parents, educators, and therapists, emotion coaching can help you transform your role with the children you support, help you manage stress levels, as well as feel more confident and effective in your role of supporting children. Whether you're a parent trying to get through a tough bedtime routine, an educator trying to support children in an overstimulating classroom, or a therapist supporting a child on the autism spectrum, this approach can make a huge difference in the effectiveness of your support. It's not about being perfect, it's about learning how to show up for the children in your life in a way that truly helps them thrive. So today, we'll be unpacking this powerful framework, and I'll show you how to integrate this approach into your parenting, classroom, or therapy practice. Together, we'll explore what emotion coaching is and why it's so effective, how to implement its 5 key steps, how sensory processing fits into emotional regulation, and how to practically implement this strategy into your everyday life, even if it feels overwhelming right now. To understand emotion coaching, we first need to understand what emotional regulation is and what happens to the brain during moments of stress. That's where emotional intelligence and the hand model of the brain comes into play. Emotional intelligence is all about understanding our own feelings and the feelings of others. It's what helps us manage our own emotions, empathize with others, form and maintain positive relationships with those around us. For children who experience and show these big emotions, emotional intelligence is a key skill to develop in order to allow them to problem solve, cope in stressful situations, and build meaningful relationships with those around them through social interactions. Let me explain this using the hand model of the brain, first introduced by Dr. Dan Siegel. Your wrist represents the brainstem, which is used for basic survival functions such as breathing. Then, curl your thumb into the palm of your hand. This now represents our limbic system, which is where emotions such as fear, anger, and joy are processed. Finally, we'll curl our fingers over the top of our thumb. This is our cortex, the thinking part of our brain, where we're able to problem solve and critically think. When everything is running smoothly, our cortex keeps our limbic system in check, which means we're using our problem solving and reasoning part of our brain. However, when someone becomes overwhelmed, such as when a child is frustrated or overstimulated, they will flip their lid. This means that their limbic system is going to start to take over and they're only reacting by what their emotions are telling them to do. So they're thinking with their anger, their frustration, or their excitement. Therefore, they're not able to reason or correctly process instructions that we're given because they're pretty much in fight or flight mode, being controlled by their big emotions. For children, when they've flipped their lid, this often looks like big emotional outbursts, meltdowns, or things we may label as tantrums. However, this is actually their brain signaling distress to their body. They're overwhelmed and they're not really sure how to react because they've lost the connection to the problem solving and reasoning part of their brain. As parents, educators, and therapists, our job is to help children reconnect to the thinking part of their brain. Emotion coaching helps us do just that, by giving children the tools to recognize, process, and respond appropriately to their feelings. Now, before we get into the 5 steps of emotion coaching and how we can practically implement it into our children's lives, we need to first do some reflection on our own upbringing, because this has a big impact on our ability to effectively implement emotion coaching and role model regulation skills to the kids in our lives. Let's think back to our own childhood and reflect on the messages that we were sent about emotions through our upbringing. Maybe it was don't cry or stop overreacting. These messages shape how we respond to our children's emotions without us really realizing it, because it's subconsciously ingrained in us, because it's how we were brought up as well. Cultural and gender norms also play a big role. For example, some cultures may encourage emotional expression, whereas others discourage it. For men in particular, showing emotions and vulnerability may be portrayed as a sign of weakness in their culture. Men can often be taught not to cry because, again, it shows a sign of weakness. Therefore, these emotions come out in other ways, such as anger and frustration. This is often the equivalent to a man crying. But here's the thing, when we model emotional awareness and regulation, it gives our children the permission to do the same. Children learn best from the role models around them. Therefore, when we are showing the skills that we are trying to teach our children day to day, it gives them a huge advantage in developing these skills for themselves. But first, we have to acknowledge that we may be starting from a biased perspective due to our own upbringing, cultural, or gender norms. Take a moment to reflect. How has your own upbringing shaped your view on emotions? And what's one view that you'd like to challenge? Now, let's break down the 5 steps of emotion coaching and make it practical so that we can implement these steps into our everyday interactions with the kids around us. Step 1, become aware of your child's emotions. The first step is to notice your child's emotions, especially when they're mild, such as frustration or disappointment. The goal is to catch these emotions early before they escalate. This means observing your child's facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, and even change of behavior. Here are some questions that you can ask yourself in the moment to guide your analysis. What emotions might my child be feeling right now? How might I feel as an adult if I was put in a similar situation? Is my child showing any signs of physical discomfort, such as a headache or stomach ache that may indicate emotional distress? For example, if your child suddenly becomes quiet and withdrawn, it could be a sign of anxiety. By tuning into these cues, you're already taking the first step to help your child be aware and manage their emotions. The beauty of this first step is that you don't actually have to say or do anything. You just have to focus on being present with your child and observing how they may be feeling in this situation. This in itself helps you become a bit more grounded and aware of your child and helps you be empathetic towards them. Step 2, view emotions as opportunities for connection and teaching. Once you've noticed the emotion, the next step is to shift your mindset. Instead of looking at emotions as problems to fix, we can look at them as opportunities to connect with our child and teach them important life skills. For example, let's say that your child is angry because the block tower that they built got knocked over. Instead of dismissing their anger by saying, it's not a big deal. Instead, we can say, I can see you're really upset. You worked so hard on that tower. This tells your child that their emotions are valid and it opens the door for connection and problem solving. It's important not to dismiss our child's emotions because they can start to feel as though that they're not allowed to feel any negative emotions. And it also can frame you as a person who is not safe to come to these emotions with, because they may feel as though that their emotions aren't going to be heard or valued. Therefore, they start to suppress them and they come out in these big emotional outbursts, which we may perceive as coming out of nowhere. Step 3 is to communicate understanding and acceptance. Empathy is at the heart of emotion coaching. This step is all about communicating to your child that you understand and accept their feelings, even though their behaviors may not be ideal. You can use phrases like, that's so frustrating. I'd feel upset too if that happened to me. I get why you're sad. Losing something that you care about is really hard. This validation helps children feel seen and heard, which calms their nervous system and helps them feel more open to learning how to regulate their emotions. This is a crucial step in helping build connection with the children around you and making yourself a safe person for them to feel comfortable to come to with their big emotions. Step number 4 is to help them use words to describe their feelings. Once your child feels understood, help them put words to the emotions that they're feeling. Labeling emotions is a critical part of emotional regulation skills because it gives children the language to process and understand what's actually happening. You might say, it sounds like you feel disappointed because you didn't get a turn, or it looks like you feel worried about going to school tomorrow. Children often need help finding the right words for their feelings. By modeling this, you're teaching them a critical skill for emotional regulation. Step number 5 is to help them solve the problem. This might involve brainstorming solutions together or setting boundaries. For example, what do you think we could do next time to help keep your tower safe? It's okay to feel upset, but it's not okay to hit. Let's think about another way that we can express our feelings. It's important to emphasize that all emotions are acceptable, but some behaviors are not, and boundaries need to be set. I want to take a moment to speak to those of you who are supporting children that are non-verbal or that have limited communication skills. Whether you're a parent, therapist, or educator, supporting a child that can't communicate their needs or wants effectively just yet can feel like one of the biggest challenges. When a child can't express their emotions in words, it's easy to feel unsure about how to help them process these feelings. It may even feel like that these steps that we've already discussed are impossible to implement with these children. But here's the key. Connection comes first, and the first 3 steps of emotion coaching are critical in developing that connection. The great thing is that they don't need the child to speak back during them. When supporting a non-verbal child, start with step 1. Becoming aware of their emotions. This again means being a keen observer. Pay attention to their facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, and behavior. A non-verbal child might communicate their emotions through physical signs, like tensing up, fidgeting, or avoiding eye contact. You may notice behavioral cues, like withdrawing, hitting, or vocalizing. Another sign could be physiological changes, such as a flushed face or heavy breathing. Your job is to notice these cues and ask yourself, what might they be feeling right now? And more importantly, why may they be feeling that way? Is it due to sensory overload, a change in routine, or difficulties communicating something that they need or want? Observing and interpreting these signals is the foundation of connection. As we discussed, now we transition to step 2. We view emotions as the opportunity for connection. Even if a child can't express their emotions through words, they can feel your presence and care. Come close to them, get down on their level, and show them through your calm tone of voice, facial expression, or gentle touch that you're there to help. For example, if you notice a child starting to tense up and vocalize out of frustration, you may calmly sit next to them and say, "I see you're upset. I'm here to help." Sometimes your calm and empathetic presence is all that they need to start regulating. For children who are non-verbal, connection is communicated through the consistency of your actions and the safety of your presence. Step number 3 also stays the same. Communicate understanding and acceptance. Even though the child can't respond verbally, it's important to put their feelings into words for them. Some examples of phrases you can use include, "You're feeling really frustrated because you're trying so hard to tell me something, but the words just aren't coming out. I see you're feeling upset because the music is too loud. It looks like you're sad because your favorite toy broke." By reflecting their emotions out loud, you're showing them that their feelings are valid and that you understand what they're going through. For a non-verbal child, this verbal acknowledgement is important for 2 reasons. First, it builds their understanding of emotions. Even though they can't respond, they're learning to associate certain words with certain feelings. Second, it helps them develop their language skills. Over time, they may begin to understand the labels you are using and use them to express themselves. This process helps them feel seen, heard, and supported, which is key in helping children that can't communicate their needs or wants to regulate. Now that we've gone through the 5 steps of emotion coaching, it's important to recognize that there is one big prerequisite for us to be able to implement this. We need to stay calm ourselves. We need to practice regulating our own emotions during these stressful times. No one is comfortable with seeing a child in distress around them, especially if it's your own child, one of your students, or your therapy client. Therefore, it's important to recognize that if we flip our own lid, this is only going to contribute to the stress of the child. It's important that we do our best to stay calm and then think through this process in a clear and logical way. Now, staying calm and getting this right 10 out of 10 times is not possible for anybody, from a parent to a therapist. It's important that we don't be too hard on ourselves if we do get this wrong. The good news is, evidence shows that getting this right just 30 to 40% of the time makes huge differences in a child's life and helps them develop significant emotional intelligence skills. It's important to note that when we do get it wrong, we can then go and repair the relationship once the dust has settled. This might look like, after a tough morning, talking to your child in the afternoon and saying something like, "Look, I'm very sorry about this morning. Mum was just very stressed. I didn't want to yell at you. This is what I should have done." Or, "Now, let's see how we can talk about it a bit better." This not only helps your child feel safe, but it also models to them that parents and adults aren't perfect and that it's okay to say sorry and admit fault. This is again another essential skill that we're role modeling to our kids to help them build more fulfilling relationships in the future. Finally, let's talk about how sensory processing fits into emotional regulation. For children, particularly those with a diagnosis of autism, sensory sensitivities are the underlying cause of a lot of emotional outbursts. For example, a child with an auditory sensitivity might flick their lid in a noisy classroom, not because they're misbehaving, but because their brain is overwhelmed. As OTs, we can use sensory tools to help support regulation. For example, we can introduce noise-cancelling headphones, weighted blankets for calming proprioceptive input, or fidget toys to help with focus and self-regulation. Pairing these tools with emotion coaching is very powerful. For example, you might say something like, "I can see that the loud noise is making you really upset. Let's put on your headphones to help you feel more calm." By combining sensory strategies with emotional validation, we're not just managing behaviors, but we're teaching children how to manage themselves. To wrap up, here are 4 actionable strategies that you can start using today. Number 1, pause and focus on staying calm yourself. When your child is expressing big emotions, take a deep breath and ground yourself before responding. Your calm presence is the key to them being able to regulate. Number 2, set aside daily emotion talk time. Use this time to help build your child's vocabulary around emotions and build your connection with them. Number 3, celebrate small wins. If your child expresses their emotions to you instead of acting out, celebrate this by saying something like, "I'm so proud of you for telling me how you feel." Number 4 is remembering that we're not going to get this right 100% of the time. Whether you're a parent, educator, or therapist, a good goal is 30 to 40% of the time. And then the times that we get it wrong, we need to acknowledge it and go back to repair and preserve the relationship by apologizing. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this information helps you better support the children in your life and build emotional intelligence with them. If you have any other questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments below. If this content resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos just like this. If you'd like to dive deeper into this framework and learn how to apply the emotion coaching framework to your life in a personalized way, please click the link in the description to express your interest in our 6-week emotion coaching course. See you next time.